Antonio, when we talk about the Big Bend Minority Chamber, I want to talk about the genesis of the chamber and what we were trying to do with regard to support of minority businesses in our Big Bend region.
Sure. So the Big Bend Minority Chamber of Commerce was founded in November of 2012. Our founder, Sean Pittman, brought together a number of people that he had relationships in the community that were in specific places. So strategically, we brought in a board that we thought were in positions of responsibility and authority that could move the needle as it relates to women and minority-owned businesses. You know, our total commitment is to economic inclusion, and we charged ourselves with finding those opportunities where women and minorities in this community and the communities that surround us to be informed about those opportunities, but more importantly, because of the positions that our board members held, would be the opportunity to give these businesses an opportunity. Somebody's got to take that first chance on many of these businesses, because many of them are in their homes or they're operating in the dark, and you know, we want to transition them from home to Main Street, because that's the challenge in African American communities. You know, our businesses are in the shadows, so our daughters and sons don't see African Americans in these businesses. We see other people of other races that are owning these businesses when we have just as much capability. So we want to promote that idea of moving businesses from home to Main Street, or those businesses that may be on Main Street, to strengthen them beyond and use the relationship power that we have in this chamber to make those introductions, to say, hey, take a chance on this person, because the BBMC has provided training, and whether it's getting access to capital, whether it's the foundational fundamentals of operating a business, we have given them all they need. Now somebody needs to take that chance. You know, it shouldn't be our responsibility at the end of the day as people of color to say to you, here's your list of things you need to know. No, you know, you find it out yourself by having and building those relationships with people that don't look like you, that don't think like you. And don't be mad about being forced down the channel of taking responsibility for what you know, because it's not going to come natural. If you have an environment where you've only hired people that don't possess color, but if you're committed and don't have that environment, how can you expect to understand the people of color experience? You won't. And so we're hoping that this chamber will at least create the opportunity or the off-ramp for these many women and minority-owned businesses to gain an opportunity. And I think once they stand up and begin to build capacity, that they'll be able to flourish just as well as a non-minority-owned business.
And when we could get to a place representing companies and working with companies, that we had a responsibility to bring others along. So you say take a chance, I say pluck people out, but we're talking about the same thing. So my question for you is, in working with companies in your private practice, where is it you encourage that diversity of thought and employment?
So I would tell you, I'm a first generation college student. I was the first one in my family on my dad's side to go to college and graduate. The third on my mom's side. And so I didn't have a thick blueprint of college life. My mom raised two boys in the heart of Los Angeles, California, and just would never use social economic status as a crutch. She would always push you going to school. So I came to FAMU really believing in that. And I chose at HBCU over PWIs because I really wanted that. My dream was to go to Morehouse. I'm a huge MLK fanatic, and I wanted to go to Morehouse. But FAMU was the first school to accept me, and I felt indebted to FAMU for that. And so I left Los Angeles to come here. And I share that because I was born in Peoria, Illinois, grew up in Los Angeles. In Illinois, interracial relationships is common. In Los Angeles, I went to school with every race possible. I really didn't realize until I moved south that there really was, I was looked at differently. And so I've always carried that. As my career has taken off and really I've grown in my career, many times I've been the only one that looks like me in the room, whether it be the only black or the only black male in that room. And you feel that. I walk in fully aware that I'm the only one that looks like me in this room. And so because of that, I have to govern myself accordingly. I have to be mindful of what I say. And when I say that to say is like, make sure that when you finally do speak, you speak with intellect. You speak with, you're fully aware of what's going on. Because there are some in the room who may not feel like you should be there. I remember going to one of my very first meetings when I was coming up in government on the senior team, and I walked in and should be at the table, and I walked in and there was no seat at the table, and somebody directed me to a seat against the wall, because the assumption of the person was that I was the assistant to somebody at the table. And it was when the head person walked in and beckoned me to the table and told them to move over, let me pull my chair up, the look on the person's face was in awe and disbelief. I share that backstory because I always remember that feeling when I'm in the room with clients or individuals, because the subconscious thought of a person is that there's no way I should be at the table. And it wasn't because I was the youngest one, it was because of how I looked. And so when I'm engaging with clients or even the people at the firm, I have these conversations with them. And we don't shy away from it at the firm I work at. We have these in-depth conversations about race relations, racial reconciliation, things of that nature. And the thing I try to emphasize to clients, people I work with, is before you can talk about racial reconciliation, let's talk first about racial restoration, because you can't reconcile until you restore. You have to think about that. When you tell a person, pull themselves about their bootstraps, well, that's insensitive to a person who never had boots. And so I can't pull myself up if I'm lacking in certain areas. And so from a company perspective, as I aforementioned, I inquire about hiring practices. If your hiring committee are all white Americans, then you really aren't sincere about diversity. Diversity should be reflected in your hiring practices, and therefore, because you can't hire one person of color, of any color, and then try to convince us that's diversity. No, because if your hiring committee are all white, or nominate committees are all white, then really what you're doing is you're hiring that one person for a box check, not for sincere diversity. And so,
it's harder to recruit.
And it's hard to recruit because, many individuals have really lost the belief that there really is a real good chance. If my qualifications and my white colleagues' current qualifications are equal, how do you separate us? Like, don't start him, at 5 and I'm at 1 and tell me I'm on an equal playing field. I'm not. And so sometimes, what happens is some people just have never been challenged. There are some policies, and what I've been saying to people is, let's keep protesting. There's a team that's protesting. There must also be a team on the back end working on the policy. There's some things in certain workplaces that need to be addressed, need to be changed. And if they don't change, then there'll still be a challenge for anybody to penetrate in a workplace. Right now in the halls of the Capitol, we recognize that there's still a huge divide with black lobbyists. There's huge divide with black male lobbyists. Antonio mentioned the name of Sean Pittman. Sean's been able to really work it, but Sean for many years was the only black male lobbyist for a long period of time, and you recognize that. And so you want to bring up other individuals, and it gets hard. And so there are some teams that I'm on where I'm the only black on that team, and I don't go on with that attitude, but I'm also very cautiously conscious of the fact of, you have to, if you mishandle this moment, you may have literally shut the door for somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so there are some employers who really desire to make change. I think the movements taking place are forcing some changes as well. My hope is that once things calm down, if they ever do, that the people who are making changes now are actually making cemented changes, not just emotional changes. Because cemented changes mean we're changing culture, it's sustainable, and we're intentional about it. Emotional changes mean I feel the pressure to do it right now, so I'm going to do it. Once the camera goes away, I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing. And I think the latter example is where the major change happens in corporate America and in the workplace, is individuals who have applied continue to get the same thing of, you're really qualified for the job, move in another direction. That frustration, when you have a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD and you just can't find that job because you're being told that, or you're working in a place where you qualify for a promotion and you're watching people of non-color get promoted around you, and you're saying, but I have more years, more experience, and more degrees in them, and I'm not being brought up. What's going on? There's some internal things that are taking place in that regard. And some of us can challenge the narrative and not suffer the blowback. Some people in the workplace can't do that because they worry about it may be the only paycheck.
And it stays with you. Some people can put it in a compartment better than others, right?
Yeah.
A mental compartment better than others. For some, it impacts them for a long time, and I think sometimes that's not fully understood. Thank you for watching part 2 of my interview with Antonio Jefferson and Pastor McGhee. Tune in tomorrow for part 3, where we discuss police reform.